payment. So that was an interesting.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, drum rolls. It's Friday. And Ken Gishenga has not traveled to his village to go and be counted from his hometown. Census is tomorrow. It's time for BT or Business Today being put in perspective. Ken, welcome. How's your week been?
It's been an excellent week. Looking forward towards the census weekend.
Census weekend. It's going to be very sensitive. But putting our week in perspective, we start with matters tax evasion. I've seen Humphrey Kariuki earlier on Honor of Africa Spirits Limited being charged in connection to tax evasion. And the figure is quite astounding. 41 billion shillings. And also we have seen Tabitha Karanja, who's been released on bail today, being charged also evasion of close to 14 billion shillings. How does this happen? How does KRA miss these colossal amounts of money?
Very shocking, because if you combine 41 billion and 14, that's about 55 billion. The Treasury says there's another 100 billion that has also been evaded. Those have not hit the news, but it tells us that even KRA believe that there are people within KRA that are assisting people. So these matters are in court, so it's not for us to decide whether they're guilty or innocent.
Definitely.
But it tells us that for the last few years, part of the reason that Treasury KRA never hits its revenue targets is because there are people within its universe who are helping businessmen to evade tax, which is quite sad because counties are looking for money. Right now, counties are paralyzed because there's no money. So these are some of the things moving forward that we expect to see more of, not less of.
What are some of these familiar channels when it comes to tax evasion? Because this is a term that is out there right now. It's the top story in the country.
Right.
But how do people evade tax at the end of the day?
Well, it requires complicity in terms of having people inside who tend to overlook numbers or who tend to underestimate the number of sales. Now, you remember the current Commissioner General came before his role. He was a commissioner for intelligence and operations. So it's very likely that he had an intelligence networks that has been able to gather this kind of data because it requires a lot of internal cooperation. You cannot have these kind of levels if you don't have people at the ports, people at KRA to assist you to do this. And there has been that suspicion that there are people within KRA, and KRA at some point even had to lay a trap and have people who are not employees come and pretend to be employees so they could gather a lot of intelligence. So I think there's been a lot of intelligence gathering, but it's not easy to be able to get this kind of data because the people behind who are supposed to protect end up not doing their jobs.
Wow. Quite unfortunate, and it boils down again to corruption. Graft at the end of the day, give you some little money, overlook a few things here and there. Quite a sad situation. Let's move on to something beautiful. We call it the black gold. Wow. Oil. We sold our oil, the 200,000 barrels, to a buyer, Chem China Limited. And that is at 1.2 billion shillings. So are we moving on with these matters of oil? Are we confident that we're going to be exporting consistently?
Well, we love it. We've always said that Kenya needs more sources for foreign exchange. Right now, most of our dollars come from the diaspora or from tourism or from agriculture, coffee, tea. We've always needed additional sources, especially because of our debt position. So I think the oil economy can help us gain a bit more foreign exchange. So I think this was a breakthrough. That said, the rate of $60 or $61.99 tells you that it's still not a profit-making venture. And the question is, in the year 2024, when we decide to go all out, what will be the price of oil? Because if you look at the energy commissions around the world, they're painting a very bearish future in terms of oil outlook because the global economy is not growing as it used to be. So it continues to be at 60, 61, or even 59, as people say. Then it means what we need is oil to go to maybe 70 or 80 for it to be a profitable venture in Kenya. So I think a lot depends on our outlook in towards the future, the global economy, but a lot of the latest forecasts from OPEC says it's very bearish, and people are still looking at $59 to the barrel. So it tells us that we still have to think critically about whether this will be a real money-making scheme for Kenya.
Definitely, and you know, globally now there's the discussion of green clean energy. I don't know whether this is also a factor that's going to affect, our oil export in the future and its profitability.
Absolutely. Actually, after having a bearish outlook, the second major argument is the world is moving towards cleaner energy. If you look at a lot of the big motor vehicle companies, many of them are launching electrical vehicles in the next 2-3 years. So it tells you how much demand will there be for oil when people are moving towards electric and solar. So that's another powerful argument against high dollar oil price in the future. And if that remains the case, a lot of policymakers will start to sit back and ask themselves, will this be a money-making venture?
Definitely. Now, the banking sector, very quickly, the banking sector overall, it's been performing quite well. Yeah, we remember the red cap, which is still a concern. Yesterday, I was speaking to Kenya Bankers Association, and they're saying this red cap is killing businesses in the country. Moving forward with this issue of red cap, from your own economic analysis, should it be done away with? Because right now experiencing some sort of liquidity crunch in the normal money in the market at large.
No, absolutely. I think the sooner we can remove it, the better. When they put in the interest rate cap, the argument was banks were making too much profit and they needed to punish the banks. Clearly, the banks are not being punished. The profits are higher than they've ever been. The person who's being punished is a local business person, because banks are lending to government. Banks are not lending to people. So money supply in the economy has really contracted. Businessmen are really suffering. Businesses are closing down and being auctioned. So I think the people who misled the country, and I've seen the accounting body saying we should maintain the interest rate cap, they could not be further away from the truth. Because if you talk to any businessman in Kenya, they'll tell you the money supply, the liquidity conditions have dropped. So the sooner we can remove the rate cap, the better, because monetary policy cannot work when an interest rate cap is in place.
Definitely. Actually, time is out of hand. But Ken, closing remarks, Jackson Hole Symposium, what are we expecting from that?
In the world of economists and central bankers, this is the largest annual symposium of economists. It's in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And I think the big thing will be to return monetary policy to where it used to be. There was a time the Fed was sort of like the single source of truth in terms of global outlook. But even them have been giving a lot of conflicting versions of the future. They've cut rates, but they have not explained why. So it's very important that people, they can communicate in the September 17th meeting where rates will be.
Wow, perfect. May you be counted with all blessings. I remember that argument that ukicount baba, so unajua baba kona mama, na mama kona watoto. Remember that argument? It was making rounds on Twitter. But thank you very much, Ken Kishinga, for your perspective right here.